Hello, good afternoon, nutraMetrix. How is everyone doing today? Can you please type in that you can see and hear me? I know it's morning for you, Jane. Great. We still have a few minutes. So how is everyone today? Good morning, Jane. Good afternoon, anyone on the East Coast. And for Central people that I see a few, good morning. Thank you. I love the brick wall too. Good morning, Roxanne. We are going to be recording this so that I know that I announced it pretty last minute. This one should be short, so when I get started, I'll do a brief pause so that I could kind of pick it up from there and then put it on the Facebook page later today or tomorrow morning. Thank you, Jane. How's San Francisco, Jane? You out there? Good, good. I'm glad. It is still a little chilly here in Chicago. There was some threats of snow, but just lots of rain. How's the East Coast? Joanne, you're out in sunny Florida, right? Okay, we got about another minute. Sing a song. Well, next time I'll sing a song. I have to practice one to sing one. Okay, good morning, nutrimetrics. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the patient tasting, how and when to conduct one. So, to start with the when, we have put it in as an implementation strategy. So, if you're looking at the life of an account from the time that you begin, kind of what I like to call the lead generation, and if you have looked at the new tools that we've provided for you in nutraMetrix and the new practice planning guide, you'll see that there is a little grid there that talks about the different phases, like the lead generation phase, and then of course, account setup. So the patient tasting is going to be something that will happen when you already have an existing account. Um, I have just not had or seen any opportunities to do it before, but we're always growing, we're always identifying more successful ways to do different things. So if that comes out, we'd love to hear about it. The reason I say it's already an implementation strategy is because when you get to the implementation, and we'll have some meetings where we'll talk a little bit about the implementation. I know I'm working with a lot of consultants individually, both here in the US and in Mexico, and are asking a lot of questions about, well, give me a roadmap, give me a detailed plan to implement. And, that's kind of hard to do from our perspective because, as you know, there's so many different types of health professionals and there's so many different types of offices, and some have a lot of staff and a lot of, other health professionals, and others don't. So you really are going to have to gauge your different implementation strategies and what you use with which account based upon your experience and what you feel is going to work for each. So today the patient tasting is just another implementation strategy. Does it have to be used with every implementation? No, absolutely not. It's going to be used with only specific ones that it's the, a key moment to use it. And so I'll give you some examples of how some NCs have done this in the field and, towards the end, and maybe that'll give you a good idea of, is this right for maybe an account that you're thinking of. So a patient tasting, I like to do a patient tasting. It could be done at any point in time, but I like to do it kind of at the beginning of a new account. So this is definitely going to be done after the staff 123. When you get the account paperwork, you want to go ahead and book that staff 123 right away. That kind of is the beginning of everything you do within the account. But the patient tasting could be done, the week after, 2 weeks after, sometime in that time frame. When I first started doing these patient tastings, I guess I thought that the point was to help the health professional, sell more product and everything. And it wound up being that what I was finding from the results is that what it did is it helped everyone, the health professional, the staff, and the patients to gain awareness, to begin the conversation, which is great. I mean, that's a huge plus because then people start to ask questions about, this is really cool, the staff understand isotonic at this point. In theory, they understand isotonic because we've trained them, but they may or may not yet have gotten on the product. So a patient tasting, doing this at the beginning, gives the staff, and sometimes you could do like a tasting during the staff 123. I like to do that sometimes. But if you're implementing 3 to 4 products and maybe they're all isotonic into a practice, or maybe you have some DNA products in there, the staff may not have had an opportunity to taste something. So it will give them an opportunity to kind of go ahead and taste it and say, wow, this is really not that bad. A lot of times when you meet a staff, it's interesting because it's kind of the negative. It's like, oh, I don't know that I want to drink this, it's going to be nasty. And of course, what they find when they taste it is it's actually really good and it's not bad at all. So kind of getting over that fear is really helpful. It also helps the patients because the patients have the same concerns. Okay, well, I've never had to drink my vitamins before, how is this going to taste? I mean, think back when you were approached for the very first time, whether it was with the business, the product, the first time you tasted an isotonic, were you a little weary of it? And so that really, a patient tasting is meant to just gain the awareness and kind of get over that little hurdle of the fear of, is this going to be bad, or no, I really like this and this can help me. And the doctor explains why, the staff, the wellness coach explains why, and then of course it's a win-win. So how do you do it? Again, the how and the detail of it is going to depend upon the practice. I like to initially set it up. I'll ask the health professional, what is your busiest day and time when you have the most number of people in the waiting room? That's the time that I usually like to have things set up. When we first get started, the first patient tasting, obviously you're teaching the staff. The staff doesn't know, may not know how to mix it. Maybe you taught them, you gave them the handout how to mix isotonics, but they really don't remember. So you're engaging the staff. However, what happens is as time goes on, really the staff can just set it up, whether it's on the side of the desk. One health professional chiropractor that I worked with in Wisconsin, she didn't really have a lot of space on her counter. So what she did is she took one of those little folding tables, that just kind of opened up, not the big plastic ones, but one of the ones that just opened up, like where you eat and watch TV at the same time, one of those little tables. I think they're called TV tables. Anyway, she took one of those and she put it right next to where the patients registered when they came in. And then she had something like an aloe with the little tiny plastic cups that are like this size. And then the one-page PDF file from that's available on the nutraMetrix site. When you click on the product details, you print out, a copy of those. So what I like to do with the health professionals is I like to print that out and have their stickers or their labels kind of put it on their website, you know, that information on there, who they are, so that the patients can just take it, and if they want to go ahead and, order it when they get home, they can. But the other thing that the patient tasting gives you an opportunity to do is to be in the practice. So when we talk about, you get the practice started, you have a discovery meeting, which is 15 minutes, you have a proposal meeting, which is 30 minutes, you have an implementation meeting, which is ideally 30 minutes. And at the implementation meeting, you're doing that clinic walkthrough. And I know that Sarah did a meet on that. But in the clinic walkthrough, you're actually going through the process as if, you were a patient. So doctor, when I'm a patient, going through. But then what happens is you set up the account, the product arrives, you back in the practice to do a staff 1, 2, 3, and then you leave, and then you're kind of back in the practice, but you're always back in the practice for a little short burst of time. It's kind of, the saying that Sarah says, be brief, be gone, that type of thing. With a patient tasting, especially the first time, which is the time that you're modeling it for the staff, it gives you an opportunity to be in the practice for like an hour or two sometimes, depending on how long the doctor wants you to be there. And the reason I think that that's really good and very positive is because you're actually able to see the dynamic of how do the staff greet the patients. We had the conversation of the mission and vision. Is that what the staff are saying? What types of questions are the patients asking the staff or even in the health professional for the products? And so it really does a lot more than just have people taste the product. It's kind of a misconception that, oh, it's just about having people taste the product. No, it really gives you a chance to interact a little bit more with the practice, and then find out a little bit more about the personality of the practice, which is going to help you tailor that implementation. What other things are we going to use? Patient tastings is just one strategy, but of course then you have lunch and learns. What type of lunch and learns, what's going to be effective. During patient tastings, I found out that doctors are still doing the B shots, and maybe I didn't include a B complex in the initial proposal. So it's an opportunity for me to talk to the doctor and say, hey, did you realize that we also have this and this? And it's an option, that you can provide your patient. So it really does a lot more than that. But what are the tools that you need? What are the materials? Again, I like to use a little table. I don't own one myself, so what I do is I'll talk to the health professional, say, do you have a little table? Where would you like me to set up? How would you like it to run? And believe it or not, they will articulate exactly what they want you to do. And so sometimes you use one of their tables, sometimes you can bring a little table in. You don't need a lot of space. You really only need space for the protocols. I usually only do one product at a time for a patient tasting. If you're doing another implementation strategy, is you could do a product of the month. So maybe it's Mother's Day, or there's you could do a beauty blend, something. Just be creative, and then that's the product that you taste. So for example, one of my doctors, she does a lot of open houses. She's got a lot of estheticians there. So when they do an open house, they'll actually call me. They'll be like, hey, we're doing an open house. We're featuring, a detox, or we're featuring a, skin event. So I'll come in with a beauty blend. I'll come in with Oxygen Extreme, which you can't taste, but it's just kind of the empty bottle there, but they're tasting the beauty blend. So it depends on what you want to do. So it's really just a little table. The patient printouts. I like to, if it's an isotonics, I like to take this. I like to mix it up here. So I'll mix up maybe 2 to 3 servings. And then what I'll do is I will pour it into the little plastic shot glasses that you could get on your shop.com site through any of the party stores. I always like to have a supply of the shot glasses. And then you just fill those in, and then just, begin to, when the patient's sitting there and I talk to the staff, I get the staff engaged as much as possible. When I first started doing this, it was I felt a little awkward, so then I would talk to the staff and I'd be like, hey, and then the staff wouldn't really respond. So of course, what I found out is the speed of the chief is the speed of the tribe. So I'd get the health professional involved, and the health professionals, sometimes I would even say to them, we've done this, we've done that. What do you need from me? What do you want me to do? And one of my doctors said, I want you to have another patient tasting. And I said, great. So then I involve the staff. And when the doctor says, okay, Lexi's coming such and such a date, and I want you to work with her, so much different because now the staff gets involved. And it's really great to see when the staff is involved because they're just like automatic. They just get the PDF file, they talk to the patient about the product, and then they say, would you like to take one home today? And it's nice because you're just literally sitting there just mixing it. And then the goal is on the next patient tasting, you're not there anymore. I mean, you could support it, you could know when it's happening, but the goal is that it's already mixed up. It doesn't take a long time to mix the product, as you know, and it doesn't take a long time to serve it in the little shot glasses so the patient can taste it. Our isotonics, yeah, they can't be sitting out all day, but they do have about an hour to, an hour and a half, 2 hours of shelf life. It's really more from a tasting perspective more than anything else. If I know a staff's going to do a patient tasting, you can go with a product that's easier, like an aloe. Aloe is really easy. That's the one that this chiropractor I told you, she did it herself. That one is an easy one because you don't have to mix. If you are going to mix like a calcium, there's a lot of the sediments that lay at the bottom. So as that lingers, that may be a harder one because, people are going to be like, oh, what's that? And then you'd have to teach the staff to explain it. Well, that has to be there, blah, blah, blah. But really, that's it. And like I said, it is an implementation strategy. It'll do a lot more than just have the patients taste the products. It allows you to be in the practice and really understand the dynamics. And then, as you learn the dynamics, move forward with your implementation. So short and sweet. So at this point, what we're going to do is I'll open it up to questions. No questions? Thank you. I know because I recognize some of you that some of you have done some patient tastings. Do you want to comment and then I can read to the group, what you have found that it's done for your practices? So the question is, what partner store do you purchase the shot glasses from? There's a party store. I'm not sure what it's called, but that's actually a party store that I use a lot to order a lot of party stuff for my own kids. And they're 2 or 3 ounce clear plastic shot glasses. They're only like $3 for a bag of 50, something like that. I can't remember because I just really type it in Shop and let Shop search engine search it, and then I just buy, as it comes up. So I don't go to a particular store. I just search it through Shop. So Jane commented, you are right about the hesitance about the taste. This does help both patients and staff to embrace the products. Yeah, and the other thing that I didn't mention is that it helps, and Jane's comment just reminded me, it excites the health professional and the staff. As patients get excited, it excites other people. And what it did for me is it actually got me a discovery meeting because it turned out that one of the patients that was tasting one of the products was a health professional herself. She was friends with the doctor that I was doing the patient tasting at. And so when she tasted it, she said, what's this? And how does this work? And then I didn't really know who she was at the time. So as she started talking to me and everything, and then I asked her, has she heard of this before or anything? She said no, but she said, I have a dental practice nearby. Now, a lot of you guys know that I visited hundreds of practices in a 4 mile radius. So when she said nearby, I said, really, how nearby? She said a couple blocks away, at the shopping center. And I just happened to remember her name. And I said, oh, you must be Dr. So and so. And she was shocked that I remembered. And I said, yeah, I visited your practice and wound up having a discovery meeting because of it, a proposal. And she's a dentist, so she's still kind of hanging on for, I don't know, from my experience, dentists have been a little cautious. So she's still kind of somebody that I'm going to follow up with. Okay, so another comment. I agree with you. It's more than a patient sampling. It makes a difference if the doctor tells the staff to get involved. A huge difference. It makes it less awkward for you. I'll be honest that, sometimes I'm there and it's like a little awkward, like, who are you? And I had to kind of, get over that. But it helps when the staff is engaged. And of course, the staff doesn't get engaged, in my experience, until the doctor really tells them to get engaged. Okay, the question is, how should I follow up with a health professional after about the patient tasting? So Melvin, is that to schedule one, or you've already done one and you want to follow up with the results of it? So as you type, I'll answer the question of you've done one and you want to follow up with the results of it. Well, it's interesting because when you're doing it, you're going to pretty much see the results in action unfold in front of you. So you'll see if a few patients are interested, but more so than the patients, what you're going to see is the response of the staff. You're going to see the response of the doctors. You're going to see if there's a lot of other doctors, maybe other doctors are tasting it as well. And then you will, if it's your account already, you will, anything that you do, you're going to gauge, is there a spike in orders or a spike in sales? Sometimes the practices order, maybe once a month or once every other month, they put a large order through. And it's like, at least with me, it's like pulling teeth to get them to use the staff back office. And I want them to use the staff back office because I can monitor from a distance how their product inventory is moving. But for those practices that are hesitant and they don't use the staff back office, then you stop by and you're going to monitor, if they had 15 bottles of vitamin D, last Monday, and normally they've been moving 10 bottles a week. I come back and they're placing an order before the end of the week because they've sold out of the 15 bottles. Now you're going to ask, what made it move quicker this week? Was it, and the doctor will say to you, oh, patients, they got interested, or this, that, and the other, or maybe they talked a little bit more about it, so you can gauge what the interest is. Okay, so how much printed material do you hand out? Interesting. What I do is when I get started with the account, I give people a copy of the color PDF, and then I put it, I give them a soft file, like a folder of all of the protocols. And so a lot of them, they won't have color printers, but what I'll do sometimes is I'll go to the practice and I'll be like, okay, we need to print out 10 of these for the patient tasting. When I first started, I would bring the copies in and it was a lot of expense. And now I'm like, no, it's their patients and they have the file. So I'll usually do about 10. I usually don't do more than 10. And if I need to print out more, I tell the staff, hey, can you print out 5 more? Oh, that's a good idea. Jane says, sometimes I use 2 products and I ask them which do you like better to avoid the yes or no decision. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a really, really good way to do it as well. Okay, and then another comment about the follow-up to the patient tasting, that when this consultant does the patient tastings, they always tell the key staff that who are interested that they can follow up with the patients that tasted the product and were there that day. Okay, so we have a consultant just getting ready to do the first tasting. Any suggestions on engaging a health professional who is a new nutrametrics practice but seems a little unengaged? They are letting the wellness coach handle the program. Doesn't want the staff to push nutrametrics. Actually, this is not at all a weird question. It's interesting because the dynamics of the doctors here I'm finding is that, it's to get them to be engaged. Sometimes it does take time. But this doctor that you're working with has a wellness coach. So what I would do is the patient tasting is actually a great way to get the doctors engaged. Why? Because of the energy that you'll see happen. Patients get interested. And I'm actually going to suggest in this case for you that asked this question to go with even what Jane had mentioned. Maybe have two products to do a tasting so you avoid that yes or no, do you like this? Which do you like better kind of thing? Because it seems like for your practice and this health professional, it's not too engaged, but the wellness coach is there, you really want the excitement. And so, um, phrasing it this way, which did you like better to the patients and even to the staff, and even staff that are not involved in the wellness, still have them taste it. It's a new practice for you. So start to create relationships with the different staff. What's going to happen is as the doctor sees that their staff is excited, the patients are asking questions, they're going to start to get a little bit more excited too. At least for myself, a lot of my doctors are of a temperament of slow to warm with nutrametrics. So maybe they started not quite sure, coming into 9 months, a year, and now they're starting to really warm up to it. And with working in the field and the field work I've been doing with a lot of other consultants, and I know Claudia's on here, and she's another classic example of having a doctor who's been with her for like a year or two and just now is really getting excited about nutrametrics and really getting, into the program a little bit and asking more questions and everything. So it's a process. Okay. Let me see any other questions. Just reading here. Okay. So it seems like that's all the questions that we have. Okay. How often should you do a patient tasting? That's really going to be that's really going to be up to you in the practice. What I've noticed is, you know, obviously you want to start it, but you want to get it, you want to get it going. I think one of the mistakes I made when I started with my nutrimetrics practices and I started implementing in the accounts is I felt like, it's got to be done. I got to go in there. I got to do it. It's got to be done. And I did a lot of that work. And, it's unfortunate because with those health professionals, they kind of see me as the person responsible for doing that. And what that does for you as from a time perspective is it doesn't allow you to manage more accounts. The whole thing is we have to make it duplicatable. So when you get started, you can talk to, and when I have that implementation meeting and I talk about different recommendations, I'm now kind of creating a plan with the health professional. I'm saying, well, we can have a patient tasting. That's a marketing strategy. It's a marketing strategy or an implementation strategy, just like if you're putting a poster on the wall. It's the same deal. When they say, what is it? What is a patient tasting? And I explain it, I say, well, it's an opportunity for you to have, a sampling of products there for the patients to taste and for them to get their questions answered while they're waiting in the waiting room. Um, and so I say it's something that I initially conduct and teach your staff how to do it, but it takes 10 seconds to mix the isotonics together, and then the staff can just pour, hand the paper, answer any questions, things like that. So now I'm positioning it in a way where I click off the first domino, but then you can continually do it. The more often you do it, the more excitement you're going to have about nutrametrics. So again, when I first started with this one practice, I used to do this like every Saturday. And again, my mistake, I didn't train the staff to do it. I did it myself, which was like I felt like I had a Saturday morning job at the time. But it started getting things moving a little bit. So just you could do it as often as you need to do it, but you don't be the one that does it all the time. You need to teach, train. If you have a wellness coach, even better, but have them move forward and do it. I'm even starting now where in the doctor's office themselves, sometimes after the doctors get excited about the patient tasting, after they see the results of, this is good, they should taste, it might not be a bad idea, depending on your doctor, to have an open bottle in their office there. Or, if they're doing a tasting, have the doctor even say, hey, you have to taste this. Because they're still getting that question of, doctor, which multivitamin should I take? And for some doctors, the answer is as simple as this one, and for the ones that says this one, and you can go ask my wellness coach to taste it. That way it eliminates the need or the issue of they bought the bottle, they took it home, they tasted it, and they didn't like it. Because you never want that. And that's why I love Jane's idea right now of one or the other, because I have had situations where patients have taken it home, they've tasted it, they don't like it, and now they're bringing it back to the doctors. So this eliminates that issue. Another question is, so the tasting is focused on education and not selling. Exactly. It's focused on education. If you have a particular product and you want to talk about the benefits and features of that product, by benefits and features, you don't have to know all the information. You are not Dr. Deidre Mason. You literally need to read the 4 bullet points on the bottle or the 4 bullet points under the benefits on the flyer. That's it. If you have an experience with the product, then you can share your experience. But that's it. It's just really, an option to tasting it. Okay. All right, great. So have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we will be talking again at the next meet on. Have a great day.